Ryak, a Shinigami, watches his fellow beings indulge in gambling in the colorless Shinigami realm, but he remains uninterested and chooses not to participate. Meanwhile, a student named Light Yagami in Japan finds himself bored in class and contemplates the world's deteriorating state as another uneventful day drags on. Light catches sight of a mysterious black notebook descending from the sky. After the class, he grabs the notebook and discovers its title is Death Note. As he reads through the first rule inscribed in it, he learns that whoever gets their name inscribed in the notebook will meet their end to test its credibility. He writes the name of a criminal, Kiruato Harada, and is appalled to see him suffer a fatal heart attack and die. Upon returning home from school, Light proceeds to peruse through the pages of names he has inscribed in the Death Note. Believing that he is serving society, Light decides to make use of the Death Note to eliminate evil people from the world. Ryak, the Shinigami who dropped the notebook into the human realm out of boredom, introduces himself to Light and explains its property. Light's mother interrupts their conversation and offers him apples, which Ryak eats while remaining invisible and inaudible to her. Ryak cautions Light that eliminating all the evil individuals worldwide would make him the sole evil person. Nonetheless, Light firmly believes that he is on the right path and proclaims himself as the god who will establish a new world. Ryak finds Light's perspective intriguing and looks forward to what lies ahead. Light is asked by his teacher to translate a sentence during a school day, and he does it without difficulty. Ryak asks him how he can deal with the monotony of school after class, but Light advises him not to talk to him in public since people would believe he is talking to himself. Light declines an invitation to hang out with two students because he has other intentions, including carrying out his murderous rampage of criminals. When Light's younger sister, Sayu, visits him for assistance with her homework, Ryak cautions him that anyone who touches the Death Note will be able to see him as well, much to Light's dismay because he has kept this crucial information hidden up until this point. In order to keep the Death Note hidden, he creates a deceptive bottom for his desk drawer and invents a mechanism capable of igniting flammable liquids. This would result in the destruction of the Death Note, and could potentially harm anyone who opens it without using a secret lock. In the meantime, a meeting of Interpol is held to discuss the sudden deaths of criminals around the globe. They suspect that the culprit is based in Japan, and contact a world-famous detective named L for assistance. L agrees to investigate and announces that the killer is likely based in Japan, which leads to the emergence of the name Kira as a suspect. Light becomes aware of the investigation and is amused by L's arrogance. During a televised announcement, L calls Kira out, condemning his actions as evil. Light becomes angry and writes L's name in the Death Note, causing his death on live TV. However, the real L reveals that the person killed on TV was a criminal, and he used the opportunity to test Kira's abilities. L confirms that Kira is based in Japan and announces that he will catch him. Light accepts L's challenge, initiating a deadly cat and mouse game. Their objective is to uncover each other's identity, with the loser destined to meet their demise. As Light becomes increasingly confident in his ability to outsmart L, he conceals the Death Note, fearing that it might be discovered by others. Ryak is exhilarated by the impending showdown between Light and L. During a meeting, the police officers provide their reports on the Kira case, with Matsuda reporting a significant reduction in violent crime in Japan but also expressing his disapproval of Kira's methods. After the meeting, the chief and Matsuda discuss the importance of acknowledging Kira's impact on crime rates. Meanwhile, Light aids his younger sister Sayu in completing her homework. When their father returns from work, Light shares with Ryak that he has an advantage over the police, as his father is the chief leading the Kira investigation, and therefore he can easily access the investigation files from his father's computer. Remembering the Death Note rule that a person's cause of death will occur after 40 seconds of being written, Light uses his routine at school to kill off criminals every hour. The news of these deaths reaches Chief Soichiro and L, who deduce that Kira can control the time of his victim's death. During a walk, Ryak questions Light about his plan to kill L, to which Light responds that he will allow the police to apprehend L because they are both suspicious of each other, with Light's connection to the police and L's anonymity. Light is informed by Ryak when he sees someone following them home after Light's cram session. In Light's bedroom, Ryak reveals that Shinigami can see humans' names and lifespans and absorb their lifespans upon killing them. Ryak offers to grant Light the eyesight of a Shinigami in exchange for half of Light's remaining lifespan. After declining the offer to exchange half of his lifespan for the Shinigami eyes, Light explains to Ryak that he desires a long life. They then have a conversation about Shinigami in general. Later, Light has an idea to determine the identity of the person who is following him. He recalls one of the rules of using the death note, which is that a person's death will occur when their name is written followed by a cause and details. He ends up testing this rule on some prison inmates. The following day, Soichiro is informed in his office that several inmates died of heart attacks but exhibited unusual behavior before their deaths. L learns about the deaths as well and suspects that Kira has the ability to manipulate a person's actions before their death. He instructs the chief not to release any information about the deaths to the public. Having witnessed the results of the Death Note's power on his father's computer, Light finds himself more confident in its abilities. The Death Note can control a person's actions before their death, but only actions that the person is capable of performing. To expose his stalker identity, Light uses a Death Note-controlled thug to hijack a bus he and his stalker are on. Under the guise of taking a female classmate on a date, Light manipulates the situation to obtain the man's identity, revealing him to be an FBI agent named Ray Penber. With this revelation, Light plans to kill Penber soon. After leaving the hijacked bus, Penber discloses that he's an FBI agent working on a case to Light and asks him to keep this information confidential, particularly from his father. Light consents to keep it a secret. However, on the inside, Light reveals how everything is proceeding as he intended. Subsequently, when Penber arrives home, his fiancée expresses doubts about the bus occurrence, but he ignores her worries and reminds her of the pledge she made not to participate in the Kira investigation. Light decides to spare Penber's life for a week and forwards another message to Hell. Light boards a subway train to conduct an experiment with the Death Note, intending to test if he can cause a person's death by writing their cause of death first, followed by their name. Upon encountering Penber on the train, Light instructs Penber to write down the names of the FBI agents working under L. While Penber is writing, he recognizes Light's voice. But before he can react, he collapses from a heart attack. Despite recognizing Light's voice, Penber collapses from a heart attack before he can react. As he takes his last breath, Penber sees Light watching him from afar. After the deaths of the FBI agents in Japan, the US president decides to call off the investigation. Meanwhile, L decides to meet with officers who are willing to work with him and trust him. Chief Soichiro and some others agree to meet with L at the hotel where he's staying. The Kira task force finally gets to meet L in person. As the team displays their police IDs to him, L pretends to shoot them with a finger gun, saying they would be dead by now if he were Kira. After that, they sit down together and L insists on turning off their cell phones before they start. Not because he's trying to be careful, but because he doesn't want any interruptions. L advises the team to call him Ryuzaki from now on. L shares what they've learned about Kira's motives and methods with the team, and deduces that Kira is someone who was under FBI investigation between December 14th and 19th by analyzing the recent pattern of death. He suggests sending out a message that 15 investigators will be dispatched to Japan in response to the FBI deaths to intimidate Kira into taking some form of drastic action that might expose him. Soichiro, the head of the Yagami family, requires a fresh set of garments, and Light proposes to deliver them to the police station. At the reception desk, Light meets Ray Penber's fiancée, who has some information related to the Kira case. During their conversation, the woman discloses her connection to Penber and expresses her belief that Kira is capable of using alternative methods to cause fatalities, in addition to heart attacks. She also mentions that Penber told her he showed his ID to someone on the bus. Light is pleased with his luck in meeting her before she has the chance to speak with the police. As Light walks with Penber's fiancée, he thinks to himself that he must kill her. He feigns helpfulness by offering to aid her in starting the investigation, to make it seem like he's gathering information about the bus hijacking. He asks her to describe the incident in detail and takes notes. Unbeknownst to her, he writes her name and the reason for her death on a death note page. Meanwhile, the group, including L, is informed that Watari will be joining them. Light waits for the woman to pass away for 40 seconds. But despite this, she keeps acting normally and predicts Kira's capture. He wonders why she isn't acting in accordance with what he had noted. Additionally, he found Ryuk's laughter at the woman's name perplexing. He eventually realizes that Shokomaki was a pseudonym. Light understands that she would conceal her true identity because she thinks Penber was slain because he revealed his ID to Kira. Upon arriving at the hotel, Watari presents himself and provides the crew with fabricated police identification cards along with special belts. These belts can be used to easily contact Watari by squeezing the buckle, facilitating communication about meeting times with Al as they make their way to the police department's main building. Light converses with the woman, revealing his affiliation with the Kira investigation. He encourages her to join the investigation, as she has previously worked with Al and could provide valuable assistance. He politely informs her that if she agrees to this, he will need to see some identification. He writes her name above the cause of death when she hands him her driving license. As they are about to leave, a police officer returning to the station almost catches them. However, they manage to avoid detection. just before the death note goes into effect. Light reveals to Naomi that he is Kira, prompting her to wander off and commit suicide. According to the Kira Task Force's analysis of security footage, Penber was observed holding an envelope and staring at someone on the train just before he was killed. While Yukita calls Watari regarding the Kira case, L instructs him to use Matsuda's phone. Additionally, L conducts research on Naomi Misora's disappearance under the alias Suzuki. While L acknowledges Naomi's emotional strength, he also wonders if Kira had any influence on her suicide. In contrast, Matsuda and Aizawa believe that Penber's death was the reason for her suicide. Despite their concerns about privacy violations, L authorizes the installation of security cameras in the homes of the family that Penber was monitoring. The chief approves this decision, as he believes it could help with the investigation. Light requests Ryak to find every camera since he thinks his home is being watched. That evening, Light kills 2 criminals while pretending to be studying as Chief Yagami and L watch on the monitors. Light utilizes a bag of chips, including a little LCD TV and a fragment of the Death Note. Chief Yagami thinks that this dispels distrust of Light, but L is not persuaded. The next day, Ryak makes a statement on Light's choice to discard the pricey LCD TV along with the chip bag. Ryak grumbles about having to go around the house and neighborhood looking for cameras while Light leaves to purchase apples for him. L removed the cameras because the security footage didn't show anything obviously suspicious. Still believing Light to be Kira, L believes he needs to adopt a more audacious tactic to get him to reveal anything questionable. As Light takes his college admission exams, he notices a peculiar young man sitting a few seats behind him. To his surprise, it turns out to be L. Meanwhile, in the Shinigami realm, groups of Shinigami are engaged in a conversation about Ryak's activities in the human world, as they both receive perfect results on the exam. Light, in lousing the alias Heiki Ryuga, delivers the freshman address at the TO opening ceremony. After they are seated, L turns to Light and introduces himself as L. Despite feeling shaken, Light manages to hide any signs of uneasiness. He realizes that he can't afford to harm L at the moment because it would draw unwanted attention towards him. Upon reaching home, Light vents his frustration in his room due to L outsmarting him. However, he soon recovers and decides to cooperate with L's new game with a chuckle. L challenges Light to a game of tennis in an effort to profile his behavior. L quizzes him about the Kira case and wants him to assist with the inquiry. The two soon come across the shocking news of Soichiro Yagami suffering a heart attack and that he is currently being treated at a hospital. Light assures his father that he will see to it that Kira is apprehended and put to death for torturing him. L approaches and questions Light as they leave, since he isn't sure whether he is Kira. In an attempt to establish his innocence, Light wants to be given a month in solitary confinement without access to television. L is content but finds it odd that Light would make this suggestion. Meanwhile, an individual impersonating Kira sends audio recordings to the television network Sakura TV. While Light gazes out of his window in the afternoon, L and his associates discuss Naomi Misora's passing. They reach a consensus to keep it separate from the Kira investigation and utilize sketches instead of photographs to probe it. When her corpse isn't found, Aizawa is the initial member of the team to conclude that she's deceased. However, L is suspicious of the absence of her body and doesn't accept this theory. Meanwhile, as they're watching Sakura TV, Watari joins them with some news. They observe Kira holding Sakura TV prisoner and murdering out the newsreaders as they proceed. L gave the crew the order to halt the broadcast after realizing how much Kira wanted to share the word globally. Although Matsuda tries to contact the receptionist, unfortunately, nobody responds. In addition, Aizawa's attempts to reach his contacts at the station prove futile as none of them have their phones on. As a result, their efforts seem to be ineffective. Yukita leaves alone and goes to Sakura TV. Sachiko shuts off the television because she believes the news is bad for Soichiro's health while he continues to rehabilitate in the hospital. Despite the recuperation, he begs her to turn it back on. Yukita arrived at the station, but the security guard refused to unlock the door for him. In response, Yukita drew a revolver, but unfortunately, he suffered a heart attack before he could use it, and he passed away in front of the station. The squad was saddened by Yukita's passing, and Aizawa was particularly upset upon hearing the news. L and the detectives meet with Light. L asks Light to listen to the recordings that the team has seized in order to hear if the reader's voice has any hints, in an effort to test Light's analytical ability. L comes to the conclusion that Light is not Kira in this way. The team then plays a recording that L and Light recorded in an effort to get Misa Amain, the second Kira, to respond. When Misa replies, she unintentionally divulges crucial information about the characteristics of the Death Note and Shinigami, which causes Light to become alarmed. Upon receiving the request from Misa, the investigating team devises a plan while Light, who is both surprised and enthusiastic, deliberates on his next move, as the request entails meeting the first Kira in person. On the specified day in the diary entry, Detective Tauta Matsuda and Light decided to conduct an investigation in Yama. Light's motive was to find out the identity of the second Kira. To conceal his identity from the Shinigami pursuing Miss A, he gathered a group of friends to surround them during their travels. After acquiring the Shinigami eyes, Misa learned that Kira is Light Yagami. Despite her reputation as a complete moron, she handled the situation admirably, disguising herself completely. As usual, Misa informed the investigation team that she had found the actual Kira. The group then decided to engage her in dialogue and adopt a new strategy. They aired a television special denouncing Kira as a cold-blooded killer who will stop at nothing to protect his identity. In exchange for coming clean about the first Kira, they promised to minimize the severity of the penalty the second Kira will receive. Despite this, Misa found Light and confessed her love for him.